Lamptey Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined by Paul.
Good evening, mate.
And by Neil.
Hello.
That was quite good, wasn't it, Saturday?
Victory, yes.
How
Very
big
good.
is it? Paul?
It's according to Jim Brown, our friend of the show, it's our best ever FA Cup result in terms of beating the team above us. We were discussing this earlier on a WhatsApp group. It's the first time we've beaten a Premier League team at the Rico since Blackburn, which would have been about 2008. So, we haven't beaten many Premier League teams since we got relegated, and obviously we haven't beaten many at the Rico. So from that point of view, it's massive. But I think it's also a bit of a contest thing. I think it's bigger for the fans who have never known us being a Premier League club, probably than the fans who do remember us being a Premier League club. Because one of the things for me is like Stoke will always be a smaller side than Cov in a way. So it's a giant killing due to league positions, but it's not a giant killing in terms of size of clubs. Puts on tin hat and retreats to the corner.
No, I don't think you'll hear protestations from either Neil or I on that one. With the Stoke game in mind then, moments of the week, who wants to start off? Neil, I'm going to throw to you.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Jack Grimmer's goal.
Delish.
It was so unexpected. Not that we were going to score, because I felt like we were looking quite good, but just him scoring that goal in the way that he did, that sort of minimal backlift, he gets in that position quite a bit where he cuts inside and then he doesn't really know what to do with the ball. So this time I felt, it's going to be the same again, isn't it? And just to suddenly sort of jam his foot down onto the ball and to pull it into the bottom corner. And we spoke at the back end of last season about celebrating meaningful goals. And that was, at that time, a proper sort of celebration of a meaningful goal, because suddenly, given the time in the match and that, we thought, hang on, we could win this. Because I enjoyed the Jordan Willis goal, don't get me wrong, and that was fantastic, because at that point you didn't really know what the game was going to throw up. You thought, we're going to lose 2-0 or something. But when we scored, it was just sort of euphoria. But this was suddenly, we could just win this match. And it was phenomenal. The atmosphere as well at the Rico on Saturday, just kind of where you stood in the ground and you kind of looked towards different groups and you just realised remembered what it looked like when it was somewhat full. So that stand was nice and packed up. It was just a really good day. But Grimmer's goal was certainly my moment of the week.
On the subject of the Rico and the atmosphere, we talked years, since we started doing this podcast, about one of the problems of the Rico is that it didn't have, nothing had happened in it. Like, it hadn't got anything of any great stature for people, like no memories specifically. And then in recent years, I guess it's a bittersweet one, but there's the first game back and the Nublé 1-0 against Gillingham, the semi-final victory over Wycombe, and now this is starting to at least get some.
I've always felt that way. I always wanted us to move from Highfield Road originally, because I just felt like it was a statement of intent. We needed to move on if we want. And I'm not going to bother going through history and what's happened since, but that I still maintain it is ultimately the best thing for us to have a stadium of that size. But as far as events go, there are still... I've had some great times in that stadium in terms of moments. The Preston win when we got 2 in the last... I think that is probably my favourite. I've never gone quite so mad as a football match as I did during that moment. Yeah. So as a football moment, I don't know if you guys were there, but that was... Yeah, and it was only one stand again, but there's something about just all being crammed in together and coming against the odds. And I don't care if it's a soulless bowl. It didn't feel like at that moment. Everybody's there supporting the team, feeling good about it. And regardless of location, there's a memory there. And like you say, we are starting to build those moments we can point off. And obviously we want more and more. And hopefully over the course of the years, we will get more and more. But people there just absorbing the atmosphere and being totally immersed in the match, that's what it's all about. Not about the bricks and mortar and the specifics of where it is. It's about the nature, the culture of what's going on within the stadium and the fans there, and the fact that they're actually all enjoying it.
Frequent listeners will have heard Paul mention Jimbo on numerous occasions. That you mentioned there being us all crammed into one stand for that game, that Preston game. when he finished celebrating, I'm pretty sure he was in a different stand. They were rampant, violent celebrations of joy. Just thinking about it, just while you were talking, I was thinking about other great moments. The other one that sticks up for me was the Kieran Westwood last-minute penalty save against Wolves, and then walking into the centre circle at the end of the game and getting a standing ovation, or sort of a rough approximation of a standing ovation. That was brilliant, because I love him so much that I just thought that was a really nice... You were like, you really, of all the people that could have happened to, you really deserve to get that kind of recognition. Paul, anything for you that sticks out that we've not covered?
I'm just generally pleased for the people who went and those fans who it's difficult because, as you know, me and Joey didn't go, and I think there is definitely a thing of the people who went, who experienced it. It's a different feeling. We all know that if you've been to a game and not been to a game. But I'm generally pleased for the people who went, and for the fans who. It's just a great feeling when you win any match, but to beat a Premier League team slightly unexpectedly is just a fantastic moment. So it's just nice that we do have these moments now and then to remind us why we actually enjoy supporting the football club, because it has been unfortunately the Rico does almost sort of spell a certain era, and that era is about 15 years of mainly just downward spirals. So it's always good whenever these sort of results come along. I suppose the last one of this sort of proper ilk, if you take Wembley out of it, was probably the Man United away game, where people were sort of talking about things in magical tones. So, these events don't come along that often. However we sort of carve it up, it's a once in a 5 or 6 year thing. So my other thing is, I just hope that this isn't, it's quite come across as negative, but it's not meant in that way at all. My only hope is that Saturday wasn't the pinnacle of this season. Let's build on this now, because I don't want us to talk about an end of season review and everyone go, well, the best day of the season was beating Stoke.
Yeah,
I think it has to be put in that context of it's an amazing result, but the game against Exeter is still the one that I think we need to be. We can't have... One of the things that came after the last podcast was after the Wickham victory, we went to Port Vale and lost, and Neil's talked about after the Lord Mayor show, we have to make sure that the Stoke game is put in its box. The players take the confidence they deserve to get out of it, but they also get back down to earth quite quickly, because we have to accept the fact that Exeter, if we win that, then we're starting to sort of move ourselves properly into third. So let's hope the players sort of build on this and use the confidence.
How did you follow the game on Saturday, Paul?
Twitter mainly.
So how did it come across on there? Because I just didn't have a chance to actually look over it. I mean, was there? Because we've all followed it on Twitter before, and you still kind of get whipped up into the excitement. Was there? I guess there was genuine excitement among there. Were you well involved in it?
I think the problem is, the more exciting the game, the fewer. If it's quite a dull game, then obviously people have more chance to actually spend on Twitter.
True.
As it was quite an exciting game, there wasn't the feed wasn't as busy as it normally is. It was more people, to some extent, who weren't at the game tweeting what was happening than people at the game tweeting about how exciting it was. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that, because I was there and I just didn't have any chance to tweet. I mean, normally I'd like to throw something out there, but I was just so bloody euphoric afterwards. You're just talking to people, real live people about it, rather than going on your phone. It was just all about talking and just sort of enjoying the moment. And then driving around for an hour trying to find my sister's phone. That was the other thing I had to do. But other than that, no, it was a really, really exciting post-match sort of period. It was great.
I was going to say, because during the game at Wembley, how many times do you think you tweeted during that match?
Exactly, I didn't touch it.
Yeah, because why would you? Because I never see the point of people who go to concerts and use their phone. It's like you're distracting yourself from what you're actually there to watch.
Be there.
be in the moment, because the thing is, you'll watch it on your phone and go, yeah, it was brilliant. It's like, well, what was the emotions like? Well, my main emotion was making sure I could see the concert through my phone. It's like, that's not what you were there for. You're there for the concert, and it's a bit like that with the football. It's like, it's always great when someone does get the video of those goals on their phones, because, you know, there's no better thing than seeing it from the crowd's point of view when the crowd go mental. But at the end of the day, you're there to experience what you're seeing in front of you, not to sort of pass it on to anyone else. It's like, so to some extent, it was, you know, there were occasions like, it probably isn't until you watch the highlights you realise probably how close Stoke came to scoring a couple of times, and also how we had a couple of really good opportunities that we probably should have killed the game off a little bit earlier, or at least sort of made the scoreline slightly more emphatic at times.
Quite. I'll round things off with a non-Stoke and a Stoke moment of the week. Stoke moment of the week, or the Stoke-related moment of the week, I guess, was watching Match of the Day and seeing Jordan Willis's... I don't know how to describe it really, but do you know what I mean? At the very end...
Superimposed on the screen almost, wasn't it?
Yeah, right at the very end, and that was the kind of the...
that was awesome.
We were first on, and then kind of the last word as well, which is a silly thing really, isn't it? I guess it doesn't really mean anything, but weirdly it sort of did. It was just really pleasing to see, and it was nice the fact that that was a Cov player, weren't it, that was there. Yeah. It's, of all the shit things, one of the good resounding things that continually happens is when something good does happen, it's, you know, it's Biggie and George Thomas that score the goals at Wembley, and Jordan Willis is one of the scorers. Yeah, you know, it's really nice, isn't it? And secondly, non-Stoke was I want to talk about the rebirth of Stuart Bevan, who scored 2 goals for the under-23s today.
Back in the game.
Yeah, and you just think maybe what he's needed all along is just to go down to the under-23s for a bit, give him a couple of years, get him some experience, bump him up to the first team. Maybe him and Jordan Ponticelli could be our first choice strike partnership for the next 10 years.
You wait till Saturday. It'll probably be then, won't it?
He'll straight back in. Yeah. But, well, I mean, of all that, actually, you would imagine that, all jokes aside, there is no more firm strike partnership than McNulty and Biamu in the country at the minute, would you? They have to be the starting pair, irrespective of Biamu's lack of goals. And McNulty looked like he did everything but score on Saturday. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Obviously, he doesn't like being reminded, and on the off chance that he's listening again, I will just have to remind him that he missed an open goal. But it was just... in the league, he'd score that. I think something about the occasion, what it would have been, the fact he was in front of the Stoke fans, the idea that, you know, more fans were there than normal, something kind of how it got to him. It was just, he snatched it, and ordinarily he'd put that away, no problem at all. So what I imagine he'll do, and what I hope he'll do, is kind of somehow try and reconcile that in his mind. That's exactly why he buggered it up, and move on, and I'm sure he'll get a goal on Saturday, just to kick on from there. And Biamu, just, while he didn't win a lot of headers, which is what I associate with Biamu, because he is, at our level, a very good sort of target man, he wasn't able to do it against their defence, because they've just got phenomenal athletes, which Mark Robbins said. But what I saw on Saturday, and this resonated throughout the entire team, was actually how important the other things beyond tactics are. So the working hard, which is only one facet of being a good football team, but when you can sort of compile that against all the other things on the pitch that day, so you had us working ridiculously hard to get that result, more than we would do in a normal match, which is weird, because you expect a team to always put in the maximum amount of effort, but being realistic, we know that certain matches draw more out of players than others. And then you sort of put that against the fact that Stoke were clearly a very nervous team. They weren't able to make the same decisions. I think they still look quite classy in places. I thought Joe Allen in the middle looked at sort of a class apart in the way he kind of created space for himself and his ability to kind of see passes. But there was always that kind of resistance when they got closer to the attacking box to be the one to kind of make that final pass or make that final shot, and that kind of added to what was quite a useful useful dynamic for us during that game where actually I think Stoke performing to their optimum as a Premier League team and their players making the right decisions at the right time would have been probably far superior to us. But we were able to throw in tackles and just put in all the effort that we possibly could, and then sort of harness the fact that they weren't firing and they were struggling, and harness the fact that their fans were on them all game long as well. I mean, that went for within about 10 minutes. They were already there with their Hughes Out banners, and the sheer sort of negativity coming from there was on the pitch as well. And all of these things, these myriad sort of dynamics going on around the pitch, come together to allow us to win that match. And I know I've said a lot about Stoke just then, about kind of, they've not done this, not done that, but I don't want to kind of discount a lot of the high quality stuff that we did as well, and much more high quality than that we do normally in the league. So in the last few weeks, I've said quite clearly that I think the quality of football in League Two generally has been shocking, and we've contributed to that with some really sort of poor performances. But what we showed on sort of Saturday was kind of with a certain level of concentration as well. We have actually got some good quality players. So people like Grimmer, right back, showing himself to be a good quality attacking right back, and when he makes the right decisions and when he actually trusts himself to do certain things, he comes forward and he scored the winning goal. So fantastic. Jordan Willis in defence, Michael Dawes come out and said just how well he played, and he's absolutely right. I mean, the guy, he got the opening goal, he gave away the penalty, which I'm sure you guys have seen the replay. For me, I think if you're flying in nowhere near the ball in the box, and it kind of looks like give the opportunity for the other guy to go down, it's a penalty all day long, I think. And I can see why the ref gave it. What do you guys think?
It's the most penalty-ish penalty that ever penaltied. This can't be...
It had to be, didn't it?
Yeah, it can't be too much. I was quite surprised at how he got up and protested against it. Because I was a bit like, I'm not sure on what grounds you're trying to claim. And I think you probably should, because you've got to give it a whirl, ain't you? But I was a bit like, no, that's about as clear.
He said he didn't touch him, but not just during the match, which is, I didn't touch him, ref, which they all say. But actually afterwards, it's like, well, I didn't get the ball, but didn't get the player either. And you're like, are you absolutely sure about this, Jordan Willis? That's going to be on Match of the Day later.
Remember, it's your on camera. Yeah,
I think we go back to that basic rule of don't give the referee a decision to make by lunging in like a useless clown in your penalty area. Yeah. It's just like I suppose the most frustrating thing about that is just he's going nowhere.
Yeah.
just don't. And I know it's really easy because we're sat here now sort of after the event, and I know it's completely different when you're in the middle of the game, and from looking at the highlights, we've made a lot of last-ditch tackles where we were throwing our bodies in front of the ball and basically doing a do-or-die job. But at that moment, you've got to show that little bit more maturity of, I don't need to go to the ground now. I don't have to be the world's greatest sort of super defender. All I've got to do is stay on my feet and shepherd him towards the touchline. And the worst I'm going to do is give away a corner. At best, I might get a goal kick out of this. But if I fly in like a clueless idiot, at worst, I'm going to give away a penalty. At best, I might not get booked as well.
He committed to that tackle really early. That was the problem. So he saw the guy, he saw the ball, and he was in the tackle. And in that time where he made this decision to make the tackle, and then he was actually completing the action of making the tackle, that Ramadan guy, who was actually pretty good, had already knocked the ball past him, was heading towards the touchline, and he was just like, well, if you were going to fly into me here, I am going to go down. And it was just... Yeah, I mean, all day long it's a penalty. Isn't it
was the actions of a Premier League winger and a League Two centre-back, weren't it? It's weird, really, because I don't think you can be too annoyed about the penalty, because it's all of that same instinct that's probably responsible for the sheer phenomenal number of last-minute blocks and... Do you know what I mean? I think he really was just busting a gut to do the right thing, and I think in that moment he just made the wrong decision. But it was that that huge determination to see the game out that I think actually produced some of his best moments, weren't it? So I think, given that we won the game, I think we can probably move on and let him get away with that one, especially given the performance and the goal and everything else. Question from Dan Gage. on Twitter asking about how much do you think the emergence of Tom Davies has contributed to a run of clean sheets in the league. How did he play on Saturday?
Oh well, he played fantastically well. I don't think there's much correlation between sort of clean sheets and all that sort of stuff because we were getting loads before he was in the team. So I think there's a broader sort of thing going on there. But as far as his individual performances go, I think he's come in and he's done really well. He looks dominant. He's happy to sort of take control aerially, and yeah, he had a really, really good game alongside Willis, and they're very different defenders. So you've got Willis he's the athletic one. He's the one covering and making sure that he's reading the game. But then you've got Davis just sort of trying his best to dominate aerially, and he did for the most part until they brought Crouch on, and then that was just a completely different story altogether. And one thing I will say about Peter Crouch is I've never seen him live, and it's not until you see him live that you kind of appreciate his qualities, and they're really nuanced. So a lot of people in that moment will have just seen him not score any goals and him just being tall and lanky and sort of ungainly. But when you look at the specifics of what he does and just how cleanly he strikes a ball and all that sort of stuff, there was even with Peter Crouch, there was such a big sort of golfing class again. Just watching him play, it was just to kind of divorce myself from the emotion of the whole game at that one point and just kind of watch him and see what he was doing with the ball, and you sort of see this guy's actually really good at football. And I know that's not a revelation because he's played however many times for England, but I just want to put that on record that I think he's quite a good footballer.
He's got good touch for a big man.
Yeah.
Ooh, yes,
quite.
He has.
Question from Ewan Rowe: is Tom Bayliss better than Zidane? I think we'll add that to the list of possible rhetorical questions that we started last week. But he really is looking like something, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, what we've got there is someone who has got absolute technical quality, something that is just completely innate, that it's just there within him. It's not an effort for him. The things that you see players like, I'm going to throw Chris Stokes into the mix for some odd reason, but some of the easy things, which should be easy, like controlling the ball, just bringing it down, it takes an element of effort for him to do that sometimes, whereas Bayliss, he's not even thinking about that. He's thinking about how can I influence the game, how can I, how I should be sort of arching my body to kind of evade the defender, all this sort of stuff. And it's a different level, and he's playing like an 18-year-old should, where he's got none of the sort of hindrances of being a sort of a more seasoned professional who's kind of got the worry in his mind about making mistakes. There's none of that. It's just him playing his natural game, which is where the best players move on, because then throughout their career, people embrace that throughout it, and they give them leeway to allow them to do it. And people are doing that with Maddison at the moment as well, where they recognise that he might not be quite as good at some of the other things, but if you just allow him to play his natural game, that's where you get the absolute best out of him. And that's what we were doing with Bayliss. And that pitch doesn't help him, because a player like him needs kind of a more sort of fluid pitch to allow him to play his absolute optimum, but he was still sort of, in our team, he was the class apart in terms of sheer quality on the ball, and he got knackered by the end. We put him on the right hand side, and really, if we had anybody to come on, we would have brought them on, because he wasn't really able to influence in the game in the last 50 minutes because he was just absolutely shattered. But that's just the fact he's 18 years old. He's not played that sort of level of intensity game probably ever, and he just you can guarantee there was a load of scouts in the stand watching him, and they will have seen a really high class footballer there. And I mean, my hope is that somehow we find a way to negotiate. Just anybody who comes to us in this window, just say, look, guys, fuck off for a little bit. Yeah. We want him for the end of the season. Come back in the summer, and you can deal with him there, because I don't want any distractions. I just want to watch him nurture for the next few games with us.
The fortunate thing is that it's still so unbelievably early in his playing experience career.
His first team career, yeah.
Yeah.
I understand Spurs have watched him for a while, so they many other fans were thinking they were going to get him in the summer. Actually, it was very much a youth team talk, but it's he's been on people's radar for a while. So from that perspective, it wouldn't be early, because he's been tracked. But yeah, certainly in terms of his development, we've only started to see that. I mean, even with Maddison, we got about a good 12 months, 18 months out of him. I mean, this guy, for him to leave like the idea of him leaving after only 6 or 7 games is just horrible, isn't it?
But I think we talked about it last.
I think we have to put this all in context, don't we? Because didn't Man United sign some kid from us the other month?
Did, yeah.
I think as sort of said on the last pod, I think we just have to accept the fact that Tottenham have probably known about him since he was 14. The fact he's broken into the first team might accelerate the speed in which he leaves in a way. But to some extent, if you think how many times did Kean Harris play and how many times did Kean Harris stand out, and he went to Swansea.
I don't know what you're saying there. You're saying that he didn't stand out. I thought he did stand out on a number of occasions.
I'm saying that he never stood out as much as Bayliss is standing out.
No, true.
When you saw Kean Harris, you could see that there was definitely a player there, but you also thought he needs a couple more years to develop into a player who is going to dominate games at this level. Bayliss, if not dominating games, is dominating periods of games, spells of games. And to some extent, it's down to how he is advised as much as anything else, isn't it? Because we go back to Gail Bigirimana, whether or not he was at the same stage that Bayliss is when he went to Newcastle, and then we saw him 2 years later, 3 years later, and you just thought, that ain't the same kid who left here.
Mm.
You also see James Maddison, who, due to injury, never really got a long spell of first team games. I don't think Maddison ever played 5 to 10 consecutive games for Coventry. He probably played about 20 games in total, but not consecutively. And you watch what he's doing at Norwich, and you're like,
I think
people are talking about him potentially going to Liverpool. So with Bayliss, it's like, is going to Spurs the best option, or is it best staying at Cov for another year, getting promoted, and then see where you're going? I think it's always very difficult with these things. We've got examples of players going and never being seen of again. George Thomas isn't even getting in Leicester's squad when they're playing in the FA Cup.
That was a shame, wasn't it?
It's difficult, isn't it? And it's a shame for us because we think that kid should be playing first. And you almost think for George Thomas, okay, maybe if he'd not stayed at Cov, but the jump between
to the Premier League
level and the Premier League,
too big.
It is massive. Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? It's sort of, is it better for these players to go into the Championship and do what Maddison's doing, or is it better to jump to the Premier League and hope somehow you find your way into the first team? It's very difficult. I mean, if I was advising Bayliss, not just because I'm a Cov fan and I think he's a special talent for us, but I would be telling him, look, you're going to learn more playing League 2 football than you will be playing. We had Chuba Akpom. Where the hell's he gone? And his record when he was 15, 16, Arsenal was phenomenal.
I would be telling him, you will never find a better boss than Michael Doyle. I would say you will never learn someone who's basically a chilled out psychopath. I would say you could go anywhere, you're not gonna find anyone like Michael Doyle. Yeah. Neil, talk to me about the new fella, Jordan Maguire-Drew.
Yeah, exciting. We've got someone who is a winger, a proper happy to run at people, feels comfortable in the first team winger. And I won't go any further into detail about why I'm saying that, but he's just, I think, this is based on 63 minutes of football, but I think he will do a good job for us. I think that's kind of what we need, because there's an element of sort of attacking flair there, there's speed there. He just looked perfectly confident to be in that first team, to come in there and do his job, which was to find ways to create. I mean, there were elements of his game where he was a little bit maybe ponderous to make decisions, and he was just kind of maybe a little bit elaborate on the ball, trying a little bit too much, but kind of in a similar way to that I've mentioned about Bayliss. I'd much rather embrace that more than try and restrict that. So you'll probably get the best out of him if you just allow him to be this Premier League young star coming down to League 2 and just say, go on, give it a go, see what we can do. In a similar way to that Brian Kent did for us, because actually I think it's better than just sort of trying to turn them into some sort of bog standard, just, run your lines, don't do anything daft. That won't aid his development, and it's not actually what we need on the right wing either. So yeah, he came in, he put the ball in for the corner. He was he's obviously not quite fit enough yet, so I'm sure we'll get another sort of hour, 70 minutes or something on Saturday. But I think you guys, when you see him, you'll be pleased with him, because it kind of adds a nice sort of balance to the team now. So you've got one wing on one side, you've got Jordan Shipley, who, whether he's a winger or not, I'm not entirely sure, but in terms of retaining shape and giving us that sort of pure left-hand side, he does that quite well on that side as well. So I think that shows sort of potential, and I think it was a good debut for him.
I think a player the likes that you're describing there of Maguire-Drew, in a weird way, makes more sense of having Shipley on the other side. And I think I've probably referred to Leicester's tactics every single week for the last 6 or so weeks, but I'm about to do it again. It's like Mahrez and Albrighton, I suppose, isn't it? Is that if you've got that player who you're going to give full licence to fly at people, it's probably not the end of the world having someone who is going to sort of shore up the rest of the midfield and is useful because their delivery is really good and gives you something else on the other side. I quite like that dynamic, that you don't need a perfect symmetry across a team, do you? But that's good that he looks interesting then. Any other final thoughts on the Stoke game?
I just think, just generally, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but just the idea of kind of level of performance and level of effort is such a weird one, because footballers will always tell you they never go out to play less than 100%, or they never put in less effort. But it is just so noticeable in certain games where they're that one period of play where O'Brien, he came into goal, by the way, and he was just he was solid enough, and he put in some really good saves, but he also made some quite hideous sort of decisions. So I'm sure Burge will come straight back into the team. But that period of play where he kept flying out, he misjudged it, the ball dropped down, and then they had maybe 5 attempts on goal. Yeah. And it doesn't quite come across on the TV because you don't get the sort of the reaction from the crowd. But being within the crowd at that moment, just cheering on every single block. And at the time, it felt like the whole stadium was just erupting after every single block. And it didn't quite, like I say, it didn't come across on TV. But that moment there, you sort of thought, hang on, these guys, they're going to fight for this. So they're going to make sure that if this lot score, they're really going to have to force the ball into the net, because we're going to do everything to stop them. So what I now want to happen, and I don't know how you do this, but to somehow transfer that desire to win into every single league game. Now we're talking about humans here. They've got different things on the line on each game, but if we can somehow sort of place that importance on these league games to sort of generate that desire, now we have to get automatically promoted this season. That desire, plus the good players that we've got, McNulty and Bayliss, should be enough to see us through. And it's just now finding, like you said earlier, how do we kind of put a marker around that game? Yeah, it was great. How do we take the confidence, move it into the next match, and actually turn it into a good thing for the season, a positive for the season, where we've won that game and now it's actually enhanced us as a team, rather than what often happens, which is the players that are off the ball, they feel like they've achieved something before they have achieved anything, and they don't perform in the next match. And actually, I think, put into context, as much as I loved the other day, I think if last week, if you give me the choice, I'd much rather win the Exeter match, even though it's only one game out of the final 20, whatever. The league at this stage still means far more to me. So if we now go ahead and win that game on Saturday, I'm going to be absolutely delighted.
Well, I'm going to smash the glass and grab the big game klaxon, and I'm going to
do it.
Yeah, and I'm going to sound that klaxon significantly.
Huge game.
Yeah, I think it really is like a properly legit big game. The annoying thing with it is I don't know if you've looked through their form recently over their last 6 games.
Not seen it, no.
They've won 3 and lost 3.
Oh, that old chestnut. Ugh.
But crucially, they've won their 3 home games and they've lost their 3 away games.
They've won the last 4 home games.
It looks like their thing is that they are rock solid at home. But we have also done this, haven't we? Well, yeah. Is that? Do I detect an ever so slightly dismissive tone there, Neil?
I watched fantasy football after the last few weeks. It's nothing set in stone, guys. Come on.
Well, no, that was
double game week nonsense.
But that was what I was going to go on to say, was that in fact, actually, we've made a mockery of some of those different, we kept Luton quiet, and actually, if anything, has typified this season is we have kind of confounded things, haven't we? So I think it's not to say that it's beyond us, but what I mean is, if we were to go there and do something, those 2 results in a row, you'd find it hard almost not to kickstart the season, wouldn't it? You'd think that it'd almost be impossible to not gain some sort of motivation and velocity from it.
That's why it's huge, isn't it? That's why getting that win, because the negative impact of losing that game will be a lot, but actually winning it, what that will mean for us back to back, it would just be, that should set us running then, that should set us going, especially, look at the injuries we've had. I mean, we've had to deal with already setbacks this season, and yet we probably win. I don't know how far away from second. I'm not sure. Are we within reach of second yet? Or are we still a little bit behind?
I'm going to fill while I get the table up. But I think it's still quite. I think realistically,
we're 10 points behind Luton, and is it 8 behind Notts County?
Yeah, I think it feels.
But
like
a couple of games, make that swing, put the pressure on, do what we need to do, because I'm sure one of those 2 is going to drop some points in the next 2 games. It's just the way it goes, isn't it? We can't all be brilliant at the same time. That doesn't happen, does it? So, I just think get that win. Put the mark where people.
It's also the swing again, though, isn't it? Because it's potentially we win, we go 5 points or 6 points above the team that are just outside the playoffs.
Yeah.
We lose, we could be the team just outside the playoffs.
Yeah, so that's why we have to enforce it, don't we? We have to be the time. We don't let ourselves become. We're not clambering for a space anymore. We're the ones actually moving away. We're pushing on.
And 4 of our last 5 we've won. It makes that Port Vale game look very, very unusual, doesn't it? But I suppose that's just the nature of things. Paul, how would you set up on Saturday?
I haven't seen the new guy on the right wing. And this isn't, I'm going to go at Neil, it is just one of those funny things where people go, he's a Premier League loan. It's like, he plays for Brighton. And Brighton are a Premier League team, but he's not like, I don't know, a bit like the Blair Cargill thing where it's like, he's a Premier League loan.
I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, I mean, when I said that, it was more about bigging him up rather than actually believing that Brighton are a Premiership team.
He's not a Premiership player. He's never played in the Premiership and hasn't been at Brighton while they've been in the Premier League. But I understand why people jump on these things. I also find him quite interesting because obviously he didn't particularly set Lincoln ablaze, and having there was a bloke who sort of wrote a blog on why it didn't work out for him at Lincoln, and it seems like Lincoln want the same sort of thing out of their wingers that we want out of ours, where he's going to have to track back as much as he goes forward. So it'd be interesting to see how he develops. And obviously the lad from Reading, I believe, was injured before the game against Stoke, so he'll be back in the squad. My friend Devon Kelly-Evans was dropped completely from the squad again, so I'm really hoping that we just get rid of him because I just feel sorry for the guy.
Do you think?
Is that the way to treat someone who you feel sorry for?
Yeah, because I think he deserves to play football somewhere. And
he's getting enough games, isn't he, this year? He's coming in and out.
If you look at if someone put the stats up, he's played less than, I think it was less than 7 complete games. He's getting minutes, but he's getting like 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, a start, then taken off after 60 minutes. He's not getting a run of games, a continuous run of games. No. And he's clearly not going to get that now because we signed 2 new right wingers. So either you could just get rid of him on loan then. I don't care how we get rid of him. I just don't feel it's fair to him. If you've clearly brought in 2 new guys, the new guy you clearly put in front of him, and he dropped him completely from the squad, you do more harm by keeping him and not playing him than giving him the chance to go and prove himself elsewhere.
It is a few months though. He's 21. I mean, it's not like he's 30 and he's desperate to get the last career. I mean, if he doesn't quite play as many minutes this season, and yet it comes to the summer and somehow he steps up again in the summer, he's got another opportunity, hasn't he?
I'm not disagreeing with that, but he's now been replaced by a 19-year-old who didn't particularly set Lincoln on fire.
So, they did, but that blog he talks about, I read that.
Is if he comes in and Devon Kelly-Evans sets the team on fire. Devon Kelly-Evans.
But I think I think we've gone over it. For me, it's almost like it's a moot point because I didn't think he played that badly in his last game, and he's completely out of the squad for the Stoke game. So, and we brought in 2 new players who can play his position, give him the chance to go elsewhere. So that's fine. You've got him out, but you've got the 2 new guys. One of them starts, one of them's on the bench. I'm assuming Liam Kelly must nearly be back to some sort of fitness. We could do with just having him on the bench, just so if we're winning after 60 minutes, we can bring him on to solidify the central midfield. The Tom Davis and Rod McDonald one is like, that's fine. You've sort of, to some extent, Tom Davis has put down the marker, so he deserves to start. I felt a bit sorry for Lee Burge because all you want to do is prove yourself against the Premier League teams, and he was dropped. I don't understand particularly why. I felt a bit sorry for him in that context of he's our first choice goalkeeper. In some extent, it's the biggest chance for him to be in the shop window, and he wasn't given that opportunity. But I'm assuming he'll be back in against Exeter because he's our first choice goalkeeper, and there's definitely an argument for him being in our top 5 players of the year. So he comes back in.
I think it's just a thing, isn't it, now, that I think it means that you can almost have a better class of second choice goalkeeper because you can promise them that they'll play in some of the cup games or they'll play in most of the cup games. And it's a bit of a bizarre trade-off for me. I'm not sure I believe in it, but it is something that is quite in vogue, isn't it? I just imagine that that's the deal that he struck. I didn't feel like he dropped Burge. I'd be super surprised if he's not in on Saturday.
Oh, he'll be in.
Yeah, I really thought he would be. Yeah. Did anyone see him? Did anyone see him age an hour in 24 minutes earlier? By the way,
what's that? Sorry,
Lee Burge aged an hour in 24 minutes earlier. The club. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Lee! When you're obviously listening. The club tweeted twice in the space of 24 minutes. Firstly, to say happy birthday today, Lee Burge, he's 24 today, and then to say happy birthday, Lee Burge, he's 25 today. But not to acknowledge the mistake and didn't delete the previous one. So he just rapidly aged. I remember thinking when I saw the 24 one, I thought, I'm surprised how young he is. And when I saw the 25 one, I thought, he's a little bit older than I thought he was.
Getting close.
So I don't know what age I thought he was. But yeah, I certainly hope he's back in on Saturday.
Yeah, he will be. Yeah, he'll be in the team of the year, I reckon. If he continues in the same vague, I'm sure he'll make the same vote. He'll be sort of League 2 team of the year. I mean, the amount of clean sheets he's kept, unless he does something ridiculous, he's going to be best keeper in the league, isn't he?
By the same logic that put Jack Grimmer as League 2 Player of the Month for August or September or whatever it was, just that he was the name that they picked out of the hat for the best defence.
Slightly different logic, I'd suggest, to that one, which was peculiar, wasn't it?
But I
forgot that happened. God.
But I expect that. Yeah, there'll be 1 or 2 of those defenders, and quite deservedly so. Rod McDonald's been very, very good, hasn't he? And I think Burge has been very, very good indeed. Yeah. Anything else from the Stoke game or anything on Exeter on Saturday?
No.
That was like a very...
Have we got any questions?
Yeah, well, we've got a little handful of questions. Question from Deck Connolly. Do you think that fans now accept that Biamu isn't a goal scorer but is effective and important to the team? Paul?
Hope so. I mean, he is... I know there was a question about whether or not McNulty's better now that Jody Jones is out, and I don't believe that. I think Jody Jones was creating chances for McNulty, and McNulty wasn't scoring at the start of the season. McNulty's grown into the season regardless of who's around him, other than I do believe he's a better player now that Biamu's taking some of the grunt work from him, and he's not having to waste his energy chasing lost balls as he has been doing when we played 2 smaller players up front. I think he can use his energy in a more worthwhile way instead of just wasting things. I said at the start of the season, Biamu was a player, having seen him a couple of times at the start of the season, who I didn't look very impressed with. I just think that either the team or Biamu have learned how to utilise what strengths they've got, and we're definitely a better team with 2 up front, where he is the battering ram who takes the fight or takes the initiative. And I think he deserves a lot of credit, and the people who are working with him, for the fact that he has made giant leaps forward this season. And we all hope, that he does start scoring. But at the moment, the fact he isn't scoring, but McNulty is, it's like if McNulty scores on Saturday and Biami doesn't, but Biami has a good game, who cares? A bit like if Biami scores and McNulty doesn't, but McNulty has a good game on Saturday, who cares? The main thing is that is a strike partnership that is working.
I think McNulty has got 7 goals in 8 games, hasn't he?
Mm.
And I think if you said, are you happy with 7 goals in 8 from your strike partnership? You'd be like, yeah, that's fine, isn't it? That's a completely acceptable tally of goals. And if Biamu is facilitating those goals, then, which I think we're pretty beyond accepting as a fact now, I think that is what's happening, isn't it? Then so be it. I think to just go back to your point about him improving and people at the club, I think we touched on it the other week, but just to go back to it, I think when Robin signed him, he made a specific point of saying, I'm not sure he's 100% there yet, and it's going to take a lot of work. And we tried to get Dominic on again this week, and I couldn't make the audio work, so he's not going to be doing the Exeter preview. But when I was looking for my questions to put to him, I was going through some messages that we'd sent, and I saw a message back from August that just said, I just don't see it with Biamu. I'd only seen him a few times, but I'm not sure it's there. And now you have to go, well, he's got a lot better. Compared to when we first saw him, like an awful lot better. I just think that's a credit to him, it's a credit to those at the club, it's a credit to what is, I guess, more of a system that possibly suits him. Although I'm not sure I totally believe that. But I think it's good to see that we've got players getting better.
But it's about being sort of, from a fan perspective, being a little bit more sort of mature about how we look at players and kind of judging them beyond just that final bit, which sometimes just be the ball hitting you on the arse and going in. And if that happens 3 games in a row, suddenly you're a good player and you can play poorly, where actually, like we've said, he's improved as a player. And so he's not scoring, so what? He's playing well as a footballer, and he's providing for his strike partner. He's given us an outlet, and it's the whole reason why assists have become a thing, because they're there to recognise good play in a football team, which previously and 10 years ago people never talked about assists. Mm-hmm. Now they're a thing, and obviously we can debate what is an assist and what isn't an assist, but they're there to kind of measure and recognise contribution to a football team beyond just putting the ball in the net, because that's not the only thing that matters. There's so much more going on, and if we can kind of, as fans, kind of acknowledge it and see this player's playing well, regardless if he's putting the ball in the net or not. He's playing well. He's doing a job for the team, and it's actually benefiting everybody.
Great stuff. Final question for you, Neil, is: do you have a James Maddison poster on your bedroom wall?
Do they do a James Maddison poster?
I've not seen one.
Do I need to make one?
I don't know, possibly. I really enjoyed your tattoo, by the way.
I regretted that immediately. That was hard to come off.
Do you want to explain that story?
What's happened? Oh yeah, so a woman, a Norwich City fan, is obviously ever so keen on Norwich City, and has had he signed her arm the other day, and she's now got that tattooed onto her arm, and that popped up. I think you drew it to my attention, Joey, and being the card that I am, I wrote something similar about James Maddison on my arm. I posted it, and hilarity ensued, and then I had to wash the bugger off. That wasn't easy, but other than that, yeah, it was great stuff all around.
Were you in work?
No, I was working from home yesterday.
Okay.
I don't just take that. I don't take a gingham cushion to work. It's not that kind of environment. I stay at home.
Yeah, that was the favourite bit of it for me, as it was during working time. I just had this vision of you sat at your desk doing it, trying to just do it just discreetly as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Anything? Final business. You can sort of take the fingers out of your ears now, guys. The T-shirts are no longer on sale, but I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who's bought one. As a reminder, this isn't some profiteering exercise. It costs us to put this podcast out, and so anything like that, well, I think that's the only time that we've ever monetized this podcast in any way, shape or form, just goes towards making this actually happen and keeping it free for you. So anybody who, in the kindness of their heart and their desire to look amazing, and also curiously in their desire to make the team do well, because everyone that is wearing them to games is reporting that they're coming back with victories, and that is not a coincidence. That is cause and effect. Just big thank you to anyone who's done that. Are there any other business apart from that?
No, I'm good.
Paul?
No.
Oh, it doesn't seem that way, does it? Let the good times roll. Thank you very much, both of you.
Yes,
Cheers.
And thank you, listener. Bye.